So it's pretty obvious to me after playing Enzo for the better part of the last week, perfecting his build, maxing out all his slots, and facing off against every boss currently available in the first Descendant, that Enzo is probably one of the best characters in the game. I rank him top 3, seeing that he brings so much value to every single team, solo capable, and pretty much the most diverse character available in the first Descendant. His value so far has been second to none, and with content like Super Dungeons right around the corner, having an Enzo built the way I built him is probably going to be a cornerstone of every single team. Let me show you how to build it. Alright, so we are on the build section of Enzo, and I did want to quickly start off by saying something about the Descendant, and that is Enzo is a pretty phenomenal Descendant that I think is probably one of the most underrated. I think I said in the intro I think he's one of the best characters, and I firmly believe that he's probably up there with Glay. I would say he's top 3 for sure, simply because of the diversity of his build and what he brings to the table. He brings so much that not many if any can, and I think that is what makes him so strong. Obviously Bunny is still number 1 in my eyes since her kit is just so overtuned. Not necessarily good, but overtuned. But Enzo is a close second, possibly third behind Glay because of what he brings to the table. And the only reason Glay would actually be better if it's Enzo there to enable her, so obviously she would be better, but Enzo is amazing. For this build specifically, Supply Firearm Enhancer really enables him to be a very strong team player. This makes it so that your Firearm Enhancer or your ammo drop or whatever this is called naturally becomes Supply Firearm Enhancer, and rather than dropping ammo, it drops a buff. I have noticed that it's very hard for teammates to kind of pay attention to this. More times than not, most of the players just run past it. It's kind of what comes to the territory of a new game. People don't pay attention to anything. They just kind of shoot and jump on parts and break them without rhyme or reason, just illogical playstyles. But once people start to wise up and understand how to play things and do things correctly, you'll start seeing this become super meta and core for pretty much any team. What it does is it gives you a massive crit buff for the entire magazine, making it so that that entire mag is a very high powered magazine. And as you can see with the cooldown, it's already ready. By the time I have finished shooting it, it would be off cooldown and ready. And as you can see here, just looking at me shoot, the crit is absolutely bonkers. Lots of damage, really strong, very powerful, and it really enables crit weapons and make them even crazier crit weapons, and even non-crit weapons, they get a lot. Ultimately, this is part of the reason why Enzo is so amazing. This is basically a massive buffer that is going to be valuable for anyone, especially a Glay that doesn't have to reload, because once you reload that mag, it actually goes away. If you have a proper cooldown like I do, it doesn't really matter. You can kind of keep it up. For a Glay, for example, she can just keep shooting with perfect crit when she has a good weapon, especially one like the Enduring Legacy. And contrary to popular belief, I have contributed to this like narrative a little bit, and I think it's really a bad narrative from players who probably haven't really played any shield based like Descendants. And you'll notice a lot of people who say that shielding is not valuable are from people who don't really play shield-based Descendants. I'm owning up to my mistake when it comes to saying bad stuff like that and giving bad information. But I will say that this ability has been really defensively good and probably one of the better defensive abilities in the entire game. I know a lot of players are going to be a little concerned about shielding being their primary form of defense, and as you can see with my build right now, I have 5,522 shield as well as 5,677 HP, and I know that seems a little bit low, but with this ability, this is going to give you a ton of shield and is going to continuously give you a ton of shield. We have good duration as well as we have good cooldown on it, so it's gonna really keep you alive and keep you afloat, and there's very little downtime between it. You're not gonna be getting hit a lot in general as a Enzo. As any player, you shouldn't really be getting hit a lot, but as you can see here, our shield uptime is really good. It's not perfect, but you don't need perfect uptime, and having Enzo be able to essentially heal his HP makes him once again very solo capable and makes him actually pretty tanky. I feel very tanky on him, nowhere near Ajax obviously, but in terms of all my different Descendants, I feel the least vulnerable as Enzo, and that's because that ability is super great. Now, with all that out of the way, I do want to go over the updated build, starting with some of the components. Now, I'm using the Enduring Legacy. This is a weapon that has really brought me to the next level in terms of actually destroying things and content. Way better than the Tamer. Base stats is really good. I'm gonna quickly go over the stats, but I do have a perfected video coming out in 2 days for this, or a day from this, because I need to add some more stuff. But we're using mental focus, rifling reinforcement, concentration priority, better concentration, edging shot, action and reaction, better insight, concentration stabilizer, and then fire rate up. That's what we have for now. We're going to be adding another mod tomorrow and then getting that build video out whenever that time comes. But this is what we're using right now. The rest, it doesn't really matter. Clairvoyance doesn't really matter. You can look at the substats there. Crit damage, attack, fire attack to proc the passive effect. That's our enduring legacy. Don't want to dwell on that too much. For our reactor, we haven't gotten a perfected reactor. This is actually one of the things that we're a little weaker on right now, and it does have skill duration up, which I really want, but the crit damage is actually kind of wasted. Ideally, I would like cooldown there to kind of make his build like super perfect, but we do have an enduring legacy materialized phase reactor currently as of recording this video. In the week that this video's out, there's no dimensional and there is no singular reactor out that you guys can farm, so you can't actually get a reactor for him. You can use dimensional or singular because the reality of his build is you're not using any of his abilities to actually deal damage. You can use his missile to deal damage, but it's usually for trash mobs and nothing important. So using dimensional or singular as your second substat under skill power boost ratio is actually pretty viable. Once again, I'm aiming for cooldown or duration up whenever it comes to the substats at the very bottom. But yeah, this is what I'm using. I did take you guys' advice when it comes to the components. I'm using a 2-piece bravery. I know a lot of people like to use the 2-piece annihilation, but I'm not using 2-piece annihilation. The reason for that is because this is a defense module and this is a HP module, and while defense and HP are good for Enzo, I want to prioritize energy shield a little bit more because I find shield to be a better defense than just raw HP, because I can always heal my shield whenever I choose to. I press V and I have it, and then like with a 8-second downtime or something, maybe a little bit longer, I can press it again, I can heal again, and I find that way more valuable than having a little bit of HP that I need something else or outside resource I need to get it to heal, right? So that's my logic behind it. You can go with the annihilation for the extra duration. I don't need the duration. I feel very good and comfortable, and I do believe there's a such thing as overkill on certain like things. Ultimately, do what you want. I do have a shield enhancement sensor that gives me mana, recovery, and combat. That was actually super important because he is still mana hungry. That is going to be his biggest like gating, is going to be mana. We do put a lot of skill efficiency and stuff we're going to go over in the build, but ultimately I wanted the mana and I wanted the shield, and this is what worked out for me. And then obviously I always go with the resistance because I actually don't use resistance on him anymore because I don't really need it. For the next module, we did actually get some defense on this with electric resistance. We did upgrade, so we do get quite a bit of defense from this one module. I did want to have a little bit of defense because we are half shield and we are half health, and it made sense to get some defense to like complement our health portion when we eventually do go down, because sometimes we do. Things do a lot of damage and that's just the way it is. And then finally I'm using the max shield toxin, which I would like a higher toxin roll and a higher shield roll. Obstructor refuses to drop anything for me. That guy hates me. He always shoots at me. But yeah, this gives HP recovery and max shield. Again, you can go annihilation for these two pieces, but this is what I like doing and this feels comfortable for me. Finally, onto the Descendant modules, and you can use this for pretty much mobbing or bossing, and this is part of the value I'm talking about when it comes to Enzo. He doesn't need to do multiple builds, because when it comes to this specific build, which I believe is the strongest builds, his other builds are like super whatever, especially like using turret stuff that just doesn't do enough damage. And the cost investment is way too high to justify the low damage, but fortunately this one is very strong. We're using supply firearm enhancer. I went over where you can get this in the previous video, but this is just opening vaults in order to get this. Go look at my other video if you want to like a tip or trick that I went over to get this. This is your bread and butter and mandatory for this build. It's very powerful. Probably one of the best like transcendent mods in the entire game because it makes everyone a crit machine. It's ridiculous. We're using kicking because again, I just like using kicking. You can use whatever you want here, but I just want it. We're using nimble fingers to help our cooldown, mainly to keep our shield up and down, you know, keep that cooldown like good, because I want to stay defensive as possible, because all he really needs is defense and he needs like uptime on this ability. so that whenever people reload their mag, they can pick it up and keep shooting and dealing a ton of damage. Next, we're using weighing the skills. This is going to give us more max shield and skill cost reduction. Once again, targeting the things we want. We want a lot of shield and we want our abilities to be much lower, and this helps out quite a bit. Next, we're using battle of stamina, lots of HP as well as skill duration. We want duration on this build just as much as we want cooldown because we want our shield to have more higher uptime. We don't really care about the little pylon being down, the supply fire enhancer to be down. People are not going to touch it anyway unless they're in party with you. But yeah, it's a little ridiculous, but yeah, this is going to be ideal. And then we have amplification control. The skill range is absolutely wasted, but I want the max shield because shield is super important. It does help the missile get a little bit of range, I guess, so it could be good, but mainly purely for the max shield. Use something else here if you decide to, but it comes with our slot here, I believe. Then we're using maximize conservation. Once again, skill cooldown and power modifier. We don't care about power modifier because the only thing we do offensively is our missile, and that's for trash. We want that cost reduction on the skill because that's super important. Increase HP, pretty self-explanatory, want to stay alive. Maximize duration, very similar to maximize conservation, essentially the same concept. We want the skill duration to be longer. We trade our power for it because we only use the C for trash mobs. We use skill extension. Again, I feel like I'm constantly saying the same thing, but we use skill extension because we want longer duration. And then of course we're using shield to give us more max shield. Pretty much the build is very simple. We want cooldown, we want duration, we want defense, and we want costs on things to be lower so we can keep spamming this. This is our bread and butter. This is our focus. This enables our team. This keeps us alive. This keeps everyone topped up. And then you sometimes throw this out when you want to waste mana. And there you have it, guys. That is my perfected ENZO build for the first Descendant. I find it very hard to believe that the builds can get much stronger. I guess I could use the other slot for something else, but I don't really see the value of anything else. Maybe you guys can leave a suggestion. I don't see myself making any more ENZO builds in the near future because I think he's the most perfected character I have, and I will continue to be using him because I really like him. But this is as strong as I think he's ever going to get, at least as of the patch right now. Now, if this video did help you out on some direction when it comes to ENZO, consider leaving me a like as well as possibly subscribing to the channel for more of the First Descendant content, and stay tuned for more content on the First Descendant in the near future. Thanks for watching, everyone.